Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock, they're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose, even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other, please add a word to your mother. They're from the best decades, movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions free. Come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 30-something movie podcast. I am your host, John Reed, and with me this evening, I have my teammates. We're going to take the field. We're going to talk about a baseball movie. At least on my screen, in left field, Jeff Mazuka.
Left field?
Well, on my screen, you're left field.
All right.
Where would you want to be?
That should be one of the three questions.
Yeah.
What position would you play if you could play baseball?
I feel like we might have done that one before.
We have done that. I think we've done that one.
Or something similar. But we'll ask it again. We'll ask it again, though. Where would you be? If you weren't left field, where would you be?
If I had talent, shortstop.
Oh, okay.
I don't have talent, so I suppose left or right field would be the best place for me.
Okay. All right. I have character. You are a character. Bo, what position would you play?
Oh, wow. I played a lot of catcher growing up. Yeah. Probably best hidden in right field in reality nowadays,
okay.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. Patrick, where would you be?
The bus driver. Or the coach in charge of cardio. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
There you go. Everyone does need a strength and conditioning coach these days.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd probably be catcher. I always wanted to be I never did play baseball on an actual team, but if I was going to play. I would love to have been catcher.
I pegged you as the mascot.
I could also do that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Really?
I have been a mascot before, so it's on my resume. I do have experience. Although I'm not sure my mascot was not one you want, playing with the kids in the stands during the 7th inning stretch.
Yeah, but depending on which team, it can fit in really well.
That's true. That's true.
There's questions formulating now.
I was the angel of death.
That is quite the mascot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have some.
It was, yes, have some. Yeah.
But the AP literature crowd loved him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did.
The small crowd.
All right. Well, we spoil
Indeed.
freely here, so just be warned. Yes, if we talk about if we mention a movie title or something like that, you don't want to hear it, maybe just hit that little skip button on your podcast player once or twice, and then we should be done talking about it. If you have not yet been to our website, go ahead and check that out, 30podcast.com. You can leave a rating, leave a voicemail. You can become a co-executive producer and join us over on Patreon, where we've got a bunch of bonus episodes, 2 episodes bonus a month that come out over there, so plenty of good stuff hanging out over there as well. We had a couple things that we were talking about before the pod started recording. One of them unrelated to the sport of baseball, but there was announced, I don't know if it was today or yesterday or recently, they are working on Spaceballs 2. So
A search for more money.
In the works with Jeff. Did you say it was Josh Gad is going to star and is working on that?
That Josh Gad is somehow involved helming the project, and then Mel Brooks is producing.
Yeah.
That causes me no small amount of excitement.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic.
I just finished Mel Brooks's book.
Yeah, Mel Brooks.
And Mel Brooks, and I I am just so excited to hear that news.
That should
is
be the name of his
outstanding.
publishing company. Any book he comes out with should be from the Mel Books Publishing Company.
Mel Books. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then I
great.
think right before we started recording, so this will let people know, when we're recording this, I want to say right before, just within the last few minutes or so, we did see that there was some news related to baseball. Jeffrey, did you end up finding that? You were the one that kind of told us about it right as it was getting posted.
I think he and I probably got the same alert near the same time. But yeah, baseball legend Willie Mays passed away. 93 years old, that one.
Say hey.
Hey. Here's to him.
Yeah.
I don't know if that came through on the microphone, but I'm cheersing.
There you go. That was,
I gotcha.
it was a dull thud, but maybe I can add a little clink in post.
So much of what I do is a dull thud.
It's a dull thud. It's welcome to the 30-something movie podcast, A Dull Thud.
Dull thud. Hey, before we get into the movie, though, I want to mention a documentary that popped up on Netflix that I haven't watched yet, but it's about Gene Wilder.
Yay.
So I'm eager to check that one out.
Oh, very cool.
So hopefully by the time I'm on one of these things again, if I'm allowed on one of these things again, I'll have watched it and can share some thoughts on that one.
Awesome.
We haven't stopped you yet, so.
But they ain't over yet.
I mean, look at the rest of us Yahoos. We're still on here.
I'm serious.
There you go. Thank you.
I'm gonna throw a quick recommendation in there too. We just went and saw Inside Out 2 yesterday.
Oh, and
Fantastic.
excellent.
It's fantastic. And it's so I sit there and I looked at everyone. We're driving home. I looked at everyone. I'm like, how does Pixar do it? Like, they are just so adept at capturing whatever the source material is for the movies and like be able to characterize it, personify it as a character and put it up there and have you feel all the feels and laugh. And it's good for kids and it's good for adults. It's like, literally, how do you check all the boxes? And that's the thing that just, and even back to Cars, how were they able to capture every little bit of car and race culture in their movies? How were they able to have the cameos? And then zooming forward to this one, it's like, without spoilers, all these complex emotions and able to explain them and personify them in such a simplistic way. And not simple in terms of easy, but like break it down so like a 5-year-old could understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just am so impressed with them. And they're wonderful movies, plural, but the one I saw yesterday, Inside Out 2.
I haven't yet shown it to my kids, specifically my one of my children that struggles with his emotions. I thought this might be a good avenue to start really having discussions about emotion. So I haven't shown him the first one yet. He's only 6. So I'm not quite sure how much of it he'd get, but from what I hear, yeah, the sequel is knocking it out of the park. It's $155 million domestic opening weekend. Like,
Yeah.
it's impressive on so many levels, especially now when so many people are hesitant to go to movies because, one, they don't want to pay the price.
Right.
2, that within a couple of months, it's just going to be streaming somewhere. So I think the fact that this movie just racked up $155 million, again, domestically, for opening weekend, just incredible. So I really want to say I really, really enjoyed Inside Out. I thought the message of Inside Out was so worthwhile and one that I revisit personally, individually. I talk about it with my students, and then when my kids are a little bit older, we'll probably watch and discuss the merits of the movie and what the message is behind it. So, Pat, I'm glad to hear you say that you think that it was awesome.
It was, I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, I laughed, I cried, the whole gamut. I mean, I was like sitting there like, oh God, I hope no one looks over at me.
I still haven't gotten over Bing Bong.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the first one, but
Mm-hmm.
Bing Bong is this generation's Artax, is what it is.
Wow, that's coming out in favor of Bing Bong.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a Pixar meme that has gone around, and it lists or kind of goes movie by movie, starting in '95 with Toy Story, saying what if toys had feelings. Then they followed up with Bugs Life. What if bugs had feelings? Then they followed it up with Monsters Inc. What if monsters had feelings? What if fish had feelings? What if superheroes had feelings? What if cars had feelings? What if rats had feelings? What if robots had feelings? What if dogs had feelings? What if Scotland had feelings? And then in 2015, when they released Inside Out, what if feelings had feelings? Like that just conquered the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
take the time to think about that. What if all these inanimate objects that we take for granted had feelings? What stories would tell? And I think that's part of what Pixar does is they slow down enough to ask some of those questions. That seems silly. It seems ridiculous to ask those questions. And that meme is supposed to be funny and humorous and all that. But, it's also, I think there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, why not slow down and ask those questions?
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, it pauses the mind long enough to really just hold something up and look at it from different angles. Is there something there? Is there a story there worth telling? So, as much as it's a funny joke, it's a pretty poignant way of approaching subject matter. So, again, I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
Worth the price of admission.
if you guys get to it, I want to talk about it with someone because there's a lot there, a lot of just awesome there. Jumping on the Pixar, did any of you guys see Soul?
I have not, but I really want to. The music, I've just heard amazing things, and knowing that John Baptiste was the one involved in that, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Was that the band director one?
Yeah, and he wanted to be a jazz musician.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bo, I just cut across.
No, you're fine. I was going to say that John Baptiste was the band leader on the Colbert Show for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or the Tonight Show.
Patrick, did you feel a little connection to that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it was funny because that movie hit at a point in my life, and I don't want to get too deep, but like a lot of what they interrogate in the movie, I was going through, and I was sitting there thinking, like, did they make this movie just for? Wait a minute, this is really weird. And I remember talking because I'd been talking about a lot of the things that the movie presented. I remember talking to Dennis at length about it, just in the 2 years leading up to that movie. And then it was like, I went in the next day, I'm like, I just saw a movie that I think was made exactly for me. And yeah. So it's funny you say that because that's a movie that I really, and actually, if I was going to do a top 10 list, I think I'd have to move that one up there because I mean, it really like, oh, well, now what I'm feeling makes sense. Oh, So yeah, they, again, to your point that you made about this film, the Inside Out 2, I think it could be made for this. They just are able to bring that emotion. It wasn't quite inanimate objects in this one, but they were able to interrogate these higher level, very almost abstract emotions that I guess it's good to introduce to kids, but I don't know if what was presented in the film was something that kids would understand because I don't know if they've lived long enough.
Interesting.
So anyways, like I said, if you guys see it, anybody wants to talk about Soul or Inside Out 2.
Well, it's on my list of things to do this summer, so hopefully I can get to it soon, and then we can chat.
Awesome. The one I'm going to say hold is please. I know you said you're not sure if you've seen Heat. I don't know what to say on that other than like it's on the thing for next year. So please, dear God, if you don't watch Heat, can you please make sure you're on the pod when we record Heat because I want to get your reactions.
All right. Well, you will get my reactions long before we record on it, if and when I get to it.
Okay. Awesome.
Make sure to contact you.
Any hour. I don't care when you watch it. Just call me.
Pat would like
Just
to. Pat would like to sit next to you while you watch it.
Yeah, I might just show up at your house.
That's fine. I mean, come on over on Monday. Instead of going out to lunch, we'll just sit and watch Heat.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, we've lost Pat for the rest of the episode.
mm.
God, that's like. Thanks a lot, Jeff. That's like distracting Bo with a bowling ball meme.
Guys, Thomas just showed up. Can you say hi real quick?
Hello.
Oh, hey, Thomas.
Hey, buddy. How
Hey,
you
buddy,
doing?
how are you?
Way to bed. Just came
Going to
say-
bed?
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Good night, buddy.
Oh, awesome. Bo, your timing there was impeccable, by the way.
I try.
No, but it really all came together nicely.
Fine.
Well,
What was that, Jen?
Well, from being happy and excited about things to talking about the movie Cobb, let's shift gears for a
Oh.
moment.
Oy vey. Okay.
Oh, right.
I'd rather go watch
I mean,
play.
at some point. All right. Well, so this one, we are here to talk about the movie Cobb from 1994. This one was released on December 2nd, 94. Rating of R with a runtime of 2 hours, 8 minutes, directed and written by Ron Shelton. He also did Bull Durham, White Men Can't Jump, and Tin Cup. Al Stump was responsible for some of the writing. It was the Ty Cobb, The Life and Times of the Meanest Man Who Ever Played Baseball, and The Great American Sports Writer. Producers were Arnon Milchan, who did Pretty Woman and Fight Club, David V. Lester, who did The Bodyguard and Unforgiven. Composer was Elliot Goldenthal, who did Interview with the Vampire and Heat.
Next
The
year.
movie Pat is so
Thanks.
excited about.
I am so excited. It
Cinema-
is such an amazing movie.
Cinematographer is Russell Boyd, who did Master and Commander, another of Pat's favorites. Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, and Picnic at Hanging Rock. Editor was Paul Sador, who did White Men Can't Jump and Tin Cup. Production company was Regency Enterprises. Budget was $25.5 million. Box office was $1 million.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Mm.
Just a bit outside. Flick Metrics amazingly gives this a 64%. Cinema Score not enough people went to go see it, so Cinema Score gave it nothing.
I feel like 4% is high.
I feel it's a little high too, yeah.
Anyway,
64% might be generous on the Flick Metrics. Tommy Lee Jones played Ty Cobb. He was in The Fugitive and Men in Black. Robert Wuhl played Al Stump. He was in the 89 Batman and Good Morning Vietnam. Lolita Davidich played Ramona. She was in Blaze and Jungle to Jungle. Ned Bellamy was Ray. He was in The Shawshank Redemption and Con Air. Lou Myers, who died in 2023, was Willie. He was in A Different World and How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Jodie Thalen played Kate. She was in The Wedding Banquet and The Accidental Tourist. Scott Burkholder was Oscar. He was in Apollo 13 and The Rock. Chelsea Ross was Grantland Rice, was in Major League and Hoosiers. Hope Lang is somebody who passed away in 2003, played Miss Cobb. She was in Peyton Place and The New Dick Van Dyke Show. Alan Malamud played Sid Keener, who was in Bull Durham and Tin Cup. Stephen Mendillo was Jimmy Hanlon, who was in Dances with Wolves and Ghost. And William Utay was Ernest, who was in The Bodyguard and Mighty Joe Young. So a couple of trivia things here real quick. Tommy Lee Jones broke his leg prior to filming this one, so he actually performed most of this in a cast, and the scene at the ball game was actually shot last. He had regained some of his mobility, so he was able to shoot those scenes. The pipe that Robert Wuhl smokes in the movie was owned by the real Al Stump. And this one was one of my personal favorites. The guy that he jumps out of the dugout and starts to beat up. Did anybody recognize who that was? The guy that had no hands?
It was a cameo.
Yeah.
I don't think I made it that far into the movie, but wasn't that
It is Jimmy Buffett.
Nice.
In order to help fill the stands at the stadium, Jimmy Buffett, who was going to make a cameo in the movie, performed a free concert so that they could fill the stands, and then he was in the scene where he gets to be beat up. Lost his arms in a shark accident is, I believe, the backstory for his character.
Hmm.
That's not true.
A land shark accident?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Flowers.
There were fins to the left field, fins to the right field.
If you're just going to make things up
Yes.
and pretend it's true,
I'm pretending to be Al Stump.
then this is the perfect movie to do that because it's
Yes. I'm trying to stump you. That's what I'm trying to do.
stumped.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, but why, John? Why?
Because it's appropriate, Bo.
Okay.
It fits.
Works, Bo. It works.
Okay. Sure it does.
We're going to have a lot of thoughts and some big feelings about this movie. So
I've got quick feelings is what I've got.
Quick feelings? Okay. All right. We'll give you the synopsis for this one. We'll play the trailer audio for you, and then we'll jump into 10 major moments that will summarize the movie for you. If you have not seen it recently, or started to watch it and gave up on it before the movie ended. All right. In a world where everyone seems unlikable, Ty Cobb stands head and shoulders above the rest. Journalist Al Stump will stay with Cobb during his final days to chronicle the life of one of the greatest players to ever pick up a bat. But when the subject of the biography has got a gun to his head, can Stumpy really be objective?
He was the first man elected to the Hall of Fame, considered by many to be the greatest ball player of all time. But beyond the myth and behind the legend was the most feared man in the history of baseball.
Mr. Cobb? Hello, Mr. Cobb. Come on in here. Meet the great Ty Cobb.
Lie after lie has been told about me. My entire life, I've been misunderstood. You are the very fortunate young sports writer who has been chosen to tell the true story. Ty Cobb.
Cobb, misunderstood in his genius, as genius always is. It'll be the greatest biography of a great man ever written. Type the damn thing up.
Oh, by the way, your wife left these in my automobile last night.
The man was the greatest ball player next to you of all time. Aren't you going to give Ruth credit for anything?
He ran okay for a fat man.
Am I supposed to tell the world that this monster is actually a prince? Am I just supposed to lie?
Pathetic, paranoid, and lost in the past.
I'm the writer.
And I am a legend, and legends are not pathetic.
You have never been this close to greatness in your short life, son.
I invented the damn game of baseball. Open up the door.
If you die before this book is finished, I'll write the story I want.
I ain't gonna die before the story's finished.
I'll write slow.
I'll die slow.
I have 4,191 base hits, 920 stolen bases, 2,244 runs scored, and 93 batting records. I want you to take off every stitch of your clothes. He was a self-made man and a self-proclaimed legend. Everybody hated him, and he loved it.
Children of America need heroes, Stumpy. You know that.
Major moments for this one. 10 moments to summarize the movie. We'll fly through these pretty quick. 1960, sports writer Al Stump is hired to ghostwrite an authorized autobiography of the legendary baseball player Ty Cobb, who is now 74 years old and in failing health. Stump arrives at Cobb's luxurious yet dilapidated estate on Lake Tahoe, encountering a bitter and abusive Cobb who constantly drinks and keeps loaded firearms close by. I will say in some of these early scenes, especially when they're trying to drive in the snow and other stuff, I'm like picturing other movies. Like when he does a flashback to being a little kid and jumping off the bridge with the train coming, I'm like, oh, Stand By Me. With this part, I'm like, oh, look, it's Misery. So, I don't know. For some reason, I was maybe wanting to watch other movies. During a reckless drive in a blizzard off the Donner Pass, Donner Party of 50, Cobb nearly kills himself in an accident. Stump rescues him, but Cobb takes over Stump's car, leading to another crash. While in Reno, Cobb and Stump see a show featuring Keely Smith and Louis Prima. Cobb disrupts the performance and later abuses a cigarette girl, Ramona, whom he had taken a liking to. Cobb and Stump travel cross-country to the Baseball Hall of Fame induction weekend in Cooperstown, where Cobb is haunted by memories of his violent past as he watches old footage of his career. Cobb and Stump drive to Georgia to visit Cobb's estranged daughter, who refuses to see him, revealing the depth of his alienation from his family. Stump is torn between writing the glorified autobiography that Cobb expects him to write and his own account, revealing the true, brutal nature of Cobb's character.
Let's put true in air quotes, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Dink, dink. True. Cobb begins to see Stump as a friend, hinting at his loneliness. He eventually reveals that his father's murder was actually committed by his mother's lover, not his mother herself, adding a layer of complexity to his antagonistic personality. Cobb discovers Stump's notes for the unflattering version of the biography, leading to a violent confrontation and an intense explosion of anger. And then finally, Cobb's health deteriorates further, leading to a hospital visit where he remains as harsh as ever. Stump gains a grudging respect for Cobb's intensity and completes the glowing autobiography as Cobb desired while contemplating the darker book that he plans to publish posthumously. That is the 10 major moments. Anything you want to add about any of the plot points or any of that before we have some deeper thoughts about this one, before we round the bases into deeper thoughts?
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some. Okay. Let's have some deep thoughts then.
And now, deep thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot. Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
All right. Before we dive completely into the whole thing, let me start with our typical question. When was the first time you saw this, and did you like this movie?
This was the first time I'd seen it all the way through.
Okay.
I'd seen bits and pieces of it. It was interesting. I didn't hate it, but I'm not going to rush back and watch it again anytime soon.
Patrick?
Well, it was good music. I like the music in it. This was the first time I saw it, and I kind of struggled with it. You know, like Bo said, it doesn't paint a real nice picture of Ty Cobb. And I kind of wonder about, what were they trying to tell and what was the purpose and all? And I think in that discussion, I might have, maybe I'll enjoy the movie a little bit more once I hear everybody else's thoughts, maybe, when we kind of interrogate what their purpose was. But yeah, I kind of struggled with parts of it. I thought Tommy Lee Jones performance was amazing. But yeah, so it was a rough watch. He was definitely an anti-hero in this portrayal.
I now would be interested to see the Ty Cobb movie starring Tommy Lee.
I am imagining it as we speak.
Now that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big bad, I hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know, but yeah. Jeff, what about you? How'd you feel about this one?
It's a interesting question, John.
Well, we try to ask interesting questions here.
I saw this not long after it came out. I didn't realize it had a theatrical release. I thought this was an HBO movie. I remember watching it on HBO not long after it came out, I guess. So I'd seen it before, but it had been a long, long time. But one of the lingering things I remember was that this movie was really dark. There was a very dark tone to it. So I had that in mind going into it for my rewatch. And I understand that Hollywood will sometimes take some liberties to embellish stories or to make plot points a little bit more interesting to somebody's story. But man, they really took some liberties with this film. And, you know, the director, who was the screenwriter as well, and even Al Stump, they have a wild imagination. And I want to say there was a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie, or a thing that popped up that said based on true events or something like that. And I think that did a lot to damage the legacy of Ty Cobb because of what was portrayed in this film as being true. I think it did a lot to damage who he was. Now, I'm not saying the guy was a saint, because there are a lot of records of what he did specifically as a ball player, and how dirty he played. But there are some other liberties taken that shouldn't have been allowed to be taken. And in fact, I thought I read somewhere, when the director was pressed for providing evidence and foundation for what he told in this movie, he had none. He had no evidence. So all this movie really did was, serve to really tarnish Ty Cobb's reputation, when there is evidence to the contrary of what's what's presented in this film, such as the fact that we know Ty Cobb was a supporter of African Americans playing baseball. He was in big support of African Americans playing baseball.
Wow.
Watching this movie, you would not get that feeling at all.
Right.
Was all the bigotry and everything made up as well?
I don't know if all of it was, but a lot of it, I think, in my understanding, a lot of it was embellished, again, to try to make this character to be very much out there, who I felt after watching it, or watching the part that I did watch, like the first hour and a half, there was something about Tommy Lee Jones' portrayal that I was like, there's something about this that I'm trying to connect it to, and I'm not sure what it was. And listening to the trailer, it clicked for me that there is so much of his two-face in his portrayal of Ty Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or there's so much of his portrayal of Ty Cobb in his portrayal of Two-Face.
Right.
A real person, a portrayal of a real person, be so similar to the portrayal of a fictional character says a lot about the source material that Ty Cobb was, or Tommy Lee Jones was working off of. And again, I haven't done a lot of research. I'm not all that well vested in my knowledge of Ty Cobb's career. Was he a phenomenal baseball player? Absolutely. One of the best to ever step on a baseball diamond, without a doubt. But again, I don't think there was enough paid towards his accomplishments and what he did to shape the game that we watch today. The interpretation of baseball that we watch today, for those of us that enjoy the game, is a lot of it is based on what Ty Cobb did when he played the game 100 plus years ago. But there was no connection to that, I don't think, in this movie. I feel like this movie was going out of its way to lean on the stories of Ty Cobb and did more to vilify the guy than try to show any understanding of the complexity of who Ty Cobb was, what led him to behave the way he did. What was it from his upbringing that kind of pushed him into being that type of person, right? Didn't get enough of that. You got some flashbacks, but nowhere near enough to really show why Ty Cobb felt he had to live life the way he did.
I remember having a similar conversation about the Doors movie and how the portrayal that they did of Jim Morrison. Now, I don't know if that was quite as an extreme case as what's the situation here, but again, Val Kilmer's performance was amazing, but they chose to really focus and accentuate and embellish certain aspects of the real character. And so there's a whole lot that just got left out of the movie. And it was like what you see on screen bore maybe a passing resemblance to what you would see in real life, but it's like you're only focusing on certain aspects and then possibly embellishing them. In this case, embellishing them, it's, yeah.
I mean, Ty Cobb was quite he was very financially savvy, and had invested his money very well in certain stocks and used that later in life to be very philanthropic. So much so that I believe he donated money to build a hospital. Like, he was not shy. He was careful about sharing his money, but not shy about sharing his money. So other people's welfare was on his mind, even with his own kids, who some of them were estranged from him because of just kind of how their lives went. But he did what he could to support them, to help them before any personal feelings got in the way. And again, I feel like that aspect of who he was completely lost on this movie. And what you get is someone who's portrayed, especially in that scene with Louis Prima, and when he's grabbing the microphone from Louis Prima, and he's age and just spouting all sorts of hatred. I don't know, man. Again, I understand that Hollywood is going to take liberties. They always do. Except in Pearl Harbor, I hear that movie's as accurate as can be.
Oh, incredible amounts of accuracy.
But of course, Hollywood's going to do what Hollywood does and embellish and try to make things more dramatic and more exciting and more impactful. I get that, but the degree in which they leaned into the negative stories of Ty Cobb, from what I understand in the research I had time to do, very little research went on in developing this film. And it was more like, well, I heard he did this, so let's create a story around that moment and use it in the movie.
Yeah, it's almost like they wrote the movie like those sports writers are sitting at the bar, right?
Yeah.
Throw out a topic, everyone say a thing, and make that a scene in the movie. Like, that's sort of how it felt. That opening scene was weird.
Yeah, because the little bit of reading and research that I did was there were several instances where a lot of these stories after the fact, they've really debunked a lot of what Stump wrote about, and a lot of people said actually it's more reflective of Stump himself. Like, he's actually the bigger monster than Ty Cobb is. Like, he's the bigger jerk. And even going back to some of the stories that were in this movie and in the book, the one about, you mentioned Jimmy Buffett was the guy he jumped out of the dugout to go beat up. I don't know if it was that instance, but I guess there was another instance where Ty Cobb was suspended for hitting a fan in the stands. And when the next game came around and he came out to the field to play, the ump said, "Nope, you're out of here. You're not playing in this game." And his teammates rallied around him and kind of went on strike until he was allowed to come back. So you hear some stories like that and you think, okay, if this guy was as big of a jerk, now granted, if he's a great baseball player, maybe his teammates would be like, hey, we really need him to be here so we can win this game. But I don't know. Something also says if your teammates are willing to go on strike and lose what very little pay they might be getting for playing baseball that day to get you back on the field, I don't know that you can be that much of the monster, the meanest guy to ever play baseball that they depict you as being in this movie and in the books that Stump wrote.
Yeah.
A lot of what I read was different accounts. Actually, there was an account from when he was in the hospital towards the end of his life, and one of the people who worked in the hospital said he was the nicest, sweetest guy. Like, in fact, before he died, I brought him a baseball. He signed it for my 13-year-old son. He was the nicest guy in the world. And then you hear about him, like you said, donating all that money to create that trust fund and to build a hospital and do all these other things. So again, not that he's a saint, but a lot of what I read, people said, look, he by no means was he this monster that he's been depicted in being. He was ridiculously competitive. Like, he wanted to go out there and he wanted to play hard, and he was one of those people that he could rub somebody the wrong way because he was so competitive, because when he's out there, it's all baseball all the time and do not get in my way. And yes, I will knock you over. But that it was an extreme competitiveness mixed with, he probably had some prejudices, even though he did support, black baseball players. He probably did have some prejudice that matched up with the time. So I'm sure that some of that may have been true as well. But I don't know. I read a lot of other things where little little snippets of stories where people said, actually, he's just a super competitive guy, but he's not the guy that he was made out to be in this biography.
And that's unfortunate that the movie was made the way it was then. I mean,
well, then you get one guy telling the story, and even I read something, Ken Burns even admitted that some of the stuff he put in his baseball documentary was what he had gotten from Stump's writing on Ty Cobb.
Which is problematic.
Right. But, I mean, that was, I think the comment I read from Ken Burns was, well, that was the Cobb I kind of grew up understanding because of what I had read.
Right. I think the danger in all of this too, and Bo, I'm going to lean on you a little bit here. Being a baseball fan, you hear the name Ty Cobb, and in a baseball mind, you have stories that pop up, things you've heard, things you know about him or think about him, but nothing concrete. Right?
Right.
So this movie comes out and you see, based on true events or based on true story or whatever it is that they flash on the screen there, you're more eager to believe it because you know of the person, and you want to know more about it because you're a baseball fan and you know that he was heavily impactful on the game of baseball. So as a baseball fan, you want to know more about this guy. Oh, here's a great avenue to finally learn about this guy who I know had a great deal to do with creating a lot of the fundamentals of the game and the way the game is played. I can't wait to see this film. And then this is what you get, believing that it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
The danger behind that is just incredible. And it makes me want to go back and look at research more of based on a true story movies and see, well, what is the story that this movie is based on? The other one that comes to mind is the horror movie, The Strangers or whatever it is. I think Liv Tyler that's in that movie, and someone in wearing a burlap sack over their head or a mask or something and keep knocking on the door and terrorizing her while she's in her house alone.
Yeah, I hate that.
You know, the thing pops up at the beginning of that movie based on a true story. And in researching it, what I learned was that it was either the writer or the director, or maybe it's a writer-director thing. I don't know. But whoever it is said, yeah, the story is that I was home alone once and somebody came to my door. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't terrorized by whoever came to their door. It was just they were home alone once and somebody came to their door. And from that, this whole idea of well, what if it was someone that was trying to wreak havoc? What if it was a crazy person? What if they were wearing this mask? And this whole thing gets embellished. Well, that's not part of the true story.
Yeah.
The story is, I was once home alone and somebody came to my door.
I went somewhere for lunch today and they brought me the wrong sandwich. I think they were trying to kill me.
I suppose it depends on the ingredients of the sandwich, but I see your point.
It was not the jalapeno turkey crunch I ordered.
I feel okay.
That's starting a whole nother topic.
It's a really good sandwich.
Where's the crunch come from?
They actually put potato chips in the sandwich.
Oh, well, wow. Move the jalapenos, extra potato chips, and I'm on board.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think the jalapeno. I don't think there's actual jalapeno. I don't think there's actual jalapenos in there. I think it's jalapeno flavored chips.
So
it's good stuff.
I'm just having a question here. Has all the talk about service? Has anybody seen that movie about waiters? What was that called? Serving?
No.
And you guys have all seen that movie?
No.
No.
Jeff, yes or no?
That's a no from me.
I'm just saying, you might want to watch it before you complain about your order. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, God,
wow, you guys,
nope.
No one's seen it. Oh, it's guys. I'm sorry. It is not based off a true story. It is not based off of any reality. It is totally late 90s college humor. It's like Road Trip.
Nice.
Meet PCU meets, yeah. It's all about a bunch of waiters. But I'm just saying, there's enough reality in there. Well, I don't know about reality, but there's enough in there that makes you just worry. Anyways, off on a tangent. Off on a tangent there about, John with the sandwich and the whole thing. But
You're bringing it back to the danger there that you're saying that this is true, or even the understanding that, well, true story, well, mostly true or somewhat true, but like there's just so much of this that is unsubstantiated, and then you completely ignore the stuff that we know, the positive stuff that we know is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jeff, what did we talk about with Ford versus Ferrari, right? The portrayal of that Ford exec that was like the villain trying to stop the racing team. Everyone was like, I'm sorry, Ford versus Ferrari, spoilers. But like the research we did, it was like, yeah, that's not how that guy was.
So I guess it's a reminder to us all that always take Hollywood with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I can't remember what movie first made me think that, but ever since, I wish I could remember what it was, but I have for the last several years, you see that these events are based on a true story, like, oh, goody. You really want us to think what you're about to show us is true, which all of a sudden makes me skeptical.
Yeah.
Because if you're really tripping over yourself to force feed me that this is true, chances are you're concerned it's not.
Well, and as Jeff pointed out, like the based on true events could simply be, or wait, was that John that told the story about the knock at the door or whatever that was?
No, Jeff was talking about that.
Yeah. Jeff was talking about that. But then there's also, sometimes you see it not even based on true events. It's like inspired by real events. So not quite based, inspired, which is maybe your point. But I think I've even seen some that it was like inspired by events. They don't even try to say they're real events, just inspired by events.
Yeah. Inspired by something we thought of last night.
That's right. That's right.
So I had a question.
I saw the Death Star explode during Star Wars and thought, what happens if Star Wars was cast with a bunch of leprechauns? And we got the movie blown away. Oh. So, I mean, it's like, it just inspired by events.
Another stunning Tommy Lee Jones performance too. Maybe that's what this movie needed. Maybe we needed more Ty Cobb with an Irish accent.
I'm just going to say though, I mean, at least for me, like you couldn't look away when he was on screen. The cameras found like he brought this character to life. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it was like the unfortunate piece was the character that he brought to life was a reprehensible character, and it had a real life person's name on it, and really like, ouch, that for me, that, like everyone's been saying, that just becomes problematic then, for me at least.
I think it's just sad.
Yeah.
To do that to somebody that isn't around to defend themselves.
Right. Can't set the record straight.
And, you know, if the whole idea of hiring Al Stump was to be able to set the record straight about his life, and Al Stump didn't do him any justice with that, and then to use Al Stump's ghostwritten autobiography as a basis for this movie, you know, what are we doing? What are you trying to do to this guy?
Right.
That aside, what's the point of this movie?
Yep, you just took. I was just about to ask that. What
from this film?
Yeah.
All that introspective stuff aside, what are we, a movie-going audience, supposed to walk away with after watching this movie? Is there a message? Were you guys able to pull out a message at all?
No, unless the message is we're trying to tell you Ty Cobb was a horrible person. Which to me just feels like you know, it feels like he ticked off Stump someday, and Stump was like, okay, now's my chance. That's how it feels.
And I don't even know if it was that the message was that Ty Cobb was a horrible person, because in the movie, they definitely tried to give you moments where you were supposed to sympathize with him. Now, whether you did or not, there were very few moments where I sympathized with him, but there were a few moments here and there where he did soften. And so I'm sitting there going, look, if you want him to look like a monster, then are you trying to make it sound like you're being well-rounded and like, oh, look, he is a complicated man. No one understands him but his woman. Sorry.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, thank you. Only talking about Cobb.
John Cobb. No, that didn't work. Ty Cobb.
Then we can dig it. So I don't know. I don't know what the message is. I feel like the message is, some of the message might have been, this guy's a real jerk, and some of your greatest heroes might be real jerks, but when it comes down to it, they are humans. And maybe he's this way because of his childhood, because of the rough stuff that happened when he was a kid. What I think didn't come across as well is possibly the truer story, is that he was this hyper competitive guy. And I would have loved to have seen a little bit more focused on some of the sports and not so much the drinking, the bigotry, all that stuff. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that. So this kind of takes me into a question I was going to ask you guys. I was curious about this. I wrote this down. I was trying to come up with questions that I'm like, we're going to have enough to talk about. I don't think I need to prompt with any questions or anything, but I had one. And here's what I was curious about. Would this, because I don't know if I've said how I feel about this movie. It's the first time I'd seen it, was just a couple days ago. And it was interesting, but I also didn't like it because I'm like, I've in the little bit of reading I've done, I know this is not true. And so much of this seems to not be true and has been debunked in the years since this movie came out. So no, I don't think I like this movie. I'm definitely not going to watch it again. So here's a question that I wrote down. Would this biopic have been better if they wanted to tell the story of Ty Cobb, but not have one of the main characters be Ty Cobb or Al Stump? Like if this was told from some other character in his life, if this was told from somebody in his family, if this is told from some other perspective, does that save or redeem the movie? Does that change anything about the movie if they were to do this from a different angle? Or is it just this movie probably started from a bad premise to begin with?
I think it goes back to the same thing. What are you trying to do with your biopic, right? Like if it's just the same kind of character assassination, well then, I mean, it's going to be problematic. If it's a story about another guy and Ty Cobb is a character in there, then it really depends. I mean, if he's seeing some of the more lucid scenes that we had, well, lucid, that's not the right word. I'm using bad grammar. That's how like thrown off by this movie. I'm using the incorrect words. If it says just over the top, right, as some of these scenes like that where he was just yelling profanities and just hate into the audience, and like if it was that much, then boy, that would still be a hard watch. And the same token, if you're showing a baseball movie and you're making it look like he's competitive, then and ruthlessly competitive, well, then that okay, there's players out there. There's race car drivers out there. There's like, and that's a part of it. And then, okay, we can see that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and especially with the new stuff that's come to light in the pod tonight, it's like, I'm thinking back over those scenes and just like, oh my gosh, why, why, just why? So.
Yeah, if someone else was telling this story, if it wasn't Ty Cobb and Al Stump, if you wanted to have other people telling the story of Ty Cobb, again, it goes back to, well, what are you telling? Because if you're still telling the same thing, but just from other people, that's still spreading misinformation about who Ty Cobb was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not coming from Ty Cobb and Al Stump. But I don't necessarily know that would have made this movie any better. I think what would have been great if they got into was looking at why Ty Cobb wanted to set the record straight. Why was it so important for him to hire a ghostwriter to tell his truth?
Yeah.
You know, what was he not happy about being out there about his life that he wanted? You know, what misconceptions was he trying to clear up? That would have been an thing to look at. Like,
Yeah.
why wasn't Al Stump up to that task? Because he thought,
Yeah, it was so. There's that scene at the beginning, when Stump first meets Cobb, and that other reporter's leaving. Is that what happened to Stump? And so he wrote this, like.
No, I wonder. I hear you 100%. It's a confusing deal. And I'm just going to say, from a movie perspective too, I got to the end and I was like, okay, well, who had a character arc? Like, who changed? What did we cross off the list, right? Like, what the Ty Cobb character knew he was dying, but he wanted this story out there. But then nothing in any of the actions in the movie of that character, the Ty Cobb character in the movie, none of the actions and the outcomes would have lent themselves to, man, I've turned a corner and now I'm better, or I'm going to move forward, or I'm at peace, or whatever the character arc was supposed to be. I just didn't see it in this movie.
That's one of the reasons I don't think this is a good movie. Is I don't think anybody has a character arc. Everybody starts as unlikable and they end either as unlikable as they started or worse. And I have no problem understanding why this movie only made $1 million. It's not what shocks me, or I guess I don't know, shocks me, but is who sat down with those director, producers, who sat down and said, yeah, this, like you guys have been saying, yeah, this is a story we have to tell. This is the movie I want to make. You get so few opportunities to have a movie greenlit, and this is the story. A nothing but mean-spirited story is what you decide you want to tell with that.
Yeah.
Like, so honestly, what's funny is sometimes the more we talk about movies, the more I get turned into, oh yeah, I can see the other side of that. And the more we talk about this one, I think the angrier I get at the movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you never should have made this movie. You shouldn't have been allowed to make this movie, because I don't know why you picked this source material to begin with and thought, yeah, that's a story that needs to be told.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Ty Cobb story kind of does need to be told now.
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
In the right way. Yeah.
if for no other reason than to at least give the guy's legacy a chance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, was he a saint? No, we know he wasn't a saint, but he wasn't the evil person that I feel like this movie portrayed him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then just take that persona and that interpretation of Ty Cobb and say, this is true.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that they lean so hard into fabrication.
Yep.
Then again, no one's asking me to make movies, so.
Jeff, do you want to make a movie?
Let me have another drink.
Oh, not that kind.
Even to go farther than this is the movie we had to make, they pitched this to people and they gave them money to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you're pitching it based on the idea that this is true, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, the writer-director apparently had some understanding that not a lot of this is true. He had already found out or already learned and had helped, from what I've read, I think helped to fabricate more for the sake of the movie. If this were all true, yeah, very interesting guy, very interesting person to look at and say, hey, let's tell this guy's story because it's crazy. But I'd be interested to know at what point did people really start to say this isn't true. This isn't accurate. There are a lot of misinterpretations of events or events that never even happened in this movie. Like I said, the writer director knew that he was contributing to it. And like I said, when he was called out on it and asked him to provide evidence of what he proclaimed to be accurate and had nothing, and I believe he even went on, I'm going to have to look this up now. I believe he even went on to admit that he made things up. But
Jeez.
you guys go ahead and talk about something. I'm going to see if I can find where that read that.
Well, before we go to 3 questions, I have a game I want to play real quick. Do we have anything else we want to say about the movie before we play the game? And then Jeff, if you find what you're looking for, we can bring that in too. It's a really quick game. It's a very simple game, but if you have anything else you want to say about the movie first.
I think that the lesson to take is always a Hollywood true story is still a story.
And often very Hollywood.
Mm.
And they've got their own motives for doing things.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Okay, well, here's my quick game. We're not going to buzz in. We're not going to do anything like that. So just we'll answer as you feel free to answer.
Buzzers?
No buzzers. Not this time.
The buzzers were kind of fun.
Do you want buzzers?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll do buzzers if you want buzzers.
I'm kind of just busting your chops because I
That's
can.
Fine. That's fine. It's what we do.
Exactly.
All right. I'm glad. I think Jeff maybe was the person that brought this up, and I'm glad for that because I really saw a strong connection between these two characters as well. Jeff, did you find what you were looking for?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I'm apologizing for whatever it is I inspired.
Oh, no. You made the connection between how Ty Cobb is very much like Two-Face in Batman Forever.
Oh.
And how similar they are. So what I'd like to
Mark.
do. So what I'd like. Hello, Mark. Hi, Mark. What I'd like to do is I'd like to read you some quotes, and I'd like you to tell me, is this Two-Face or Ty Cobb?
Awesome.
Oh, man.
Are they movie quotes or real life quotes?
They're quotes from each of the movies. These are quotes from either.
Oh, okay, movies. Okay.
Yeah, either Two-Face or someone speaking to Two-Face, or Ty Cobb or someone speaking to Ty Cobb.
Okay.
And I have a feeling some of these will be fairly obvious, but maybe not. So let me and you guys tell me, is this Two-Face or Ty Cobb? How do you do, Cyclops?
Ty Cobb.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll go Two-Face.
Okay.
He's talking to the umpire.
It is Ty Cobb. He was talking to one of the umpires.
Yeah, it was a umpire joke.
I believe the next line was, "You're missing a great ball game."
Mm-hmm.
All right. One man is born a hero, his brother a coward. Babies starve, politicians grow fat. Holy men are martyred and junkies grow legion. Why? 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 Luck. Blind, stupid, simple, doodah, clueless luck.
That's Two-Face. Because he's all about the flipping the coin. It's the luck of that heads tails situation.
I'm gonna stick with Ty Cobb.
I'll go Two-Face.
That one is Two-Face.
Oh, there it is.
Two-Face.
There it is.
He's talking about flipping the coin. So let's see. Has anybody ever told you have a serious impulse control problem?
I'm gonna say that's Cobb.
Go Cobb.
But
well,
that one could go either way.
I'm swimming upstream again, and I'm going to say Two-Face, but I was wrong on the last one. I think I should defer to Jeff and Bo, but just for the interest of variety, I'm going to say that one was Two-Face.
That one is Two-Face.
Wow, that sounded like a Cobb. I got
that one is the Riddler yelling at Two-Face.
Okay,
yeah,
I see that.
Yeah, because doesn't he shoots a guy or he belts him or it's just something?
He fires his gun off and he's like, "Does anybody tell you have a serious impulse control problem?"
Says Jim Carrey.
Yes,
which is a whole nother whatever.
Yeah,
and isn't it ironic?
Don't you think? Two-Face or Ty Cobb? You have never been this close to greatness in your short life, son, and you love it.
Ty Cobb.
That is Ty Cobb. Yeah.
In the car with Stump, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Let's see. A ball bat is a wondrous weapon, but you should never grip it at the end if you want balance and control.
Cobb.
Like I want to say,
Yeah, because
as crazy as something Two-Face would say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with one of the two characters said it.
Okay. It is.
Okay.
It is Ty Cobb.
Yeah, his grip.
Which is very, if we want to start talking baseball semantics, very interesting the fact that he had a separated grip.
Yeah.
All right, Two-Face or Ty Cobb. I'm just waiting for you to deliver the Batman, dear boy.
Well, it better be Two-Face.
totally Ty Cobb.
Because if Ty Cobb said that, I just don't know what's going on.
I don't know, Batman. It could be two separate words.
I'm a man.
Mm-hmm.
Just waiting for you to deliver the
Batman, dear boy.
Man.
That one's,
man.
That one's Two-Face. So someone is talking to this person, and then they respond. Show me how to punch a guy. Oh, it's dead simple, my boy. Ball up the fist, reach way back, and assert yourself.
Two-Face. Talking to Riddler.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I go with that.
That one is Two-Face, talking to Riddler. Let's see if you bleed green.
Also Two-Face, talking to Riddler.
That is also Two-Face, talking to Riddler. And finally, know ye that a prince and a great man has fallen this day.
Well, that sounds like Cobb.
That General Lee talking to Cobb's grandfather.
Mm-hmm. That is Ty Cobb in that one. All right. That is the end of Two-Face versus Ty Cobb. The funny thing is, there were some we struggled on.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, and there were a couple where it was definitely flip a coin.
There were
not to make a Two-Face reference, but
right. Yeah, there were several that were like, I mean, either. Yes. My answer is yes.
Right. Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes. That was Tommy Lee Jones in Blown Away.
Exactly.
I just chose not to read them in an Irish accent.
Good.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So did he.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please say they're magically delicious?
So I found what I came across earlier, and so in this little bit online here, it says in his 2015 book Ty Cobb, A Terrible Beauty, author Charles Learson, Learson, asserts that the film is based on Al Stump's 1961 and 1994 biographies of Ty Cobb, books noted for glaring inaccuracies regarding Cobb's life, as well as a True magazine article. The name of the magazine is True. Also by Stump, published after Cobb's death. When the author Learson contacted director Shelton concerning the inaccuracies, Shelton refused to provide documentation for some of the most extravagant aspects of the movie and admitted to fabricating scenes along with Al because they believed it was something the real Cobb could have plausibly done in real life.
And when they say the real Cobb, he's basing that off of what Stump probably told him.
Yeah. So once I read that, I was like, okay, I don't think I want to watch the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, I was just like, it's slander.
Yeah.
They're trying to capitalize on the negative side of this person and just slander whatever legacy he has. So I was out at that point. I didn't feel the need to finish.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep. All right. I think it's probably time to jump over to 3 questions.
Yes.
3 questions won't let us down. 3 questions is always here for us.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. Question number 1. Who is an athlete, celebrity, or well-known person you looked up to, but later discovered wasn't a great person?
Who's going first?
I don't know if I have one.
In your fandom of Sinatra, Pat, did you know?
I'm a fan of Sinatra. Yeah.
But in your fandom of him, did you know about some of the shadier sides or shadier parts of his character? Get into the music and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you start to learn more about him and you're like, oh no.
You know what? No, that really didn't hit me because I really always just very much loved the music and the performance and the talent and all that kind of stuff. And I started listening to him later on. I was in like late high school, college when I really got into Sinatra, right? So it was kind of beyond that whole like kid rose-colored glasses kind of phase, if you will. And to me, there really wasn't much that Sinatra did that was like, oh boy, this guy's just this reprehensible human being. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he was in my mind, now someone's going to go, well, wait, what about this? And I'm just like, oh man, I didn't even think of that. But I mean, like everything he did, he was like the rest of us, just a flawed human being. You know, it was one of the greatest vocalists, singers of all time, and entertainers and actors and all that kind of thing. So I was always able to separate that from some more of the shady stuff that was presented. What about you, man? What about you? I'm kind of rambling.
With Sinatra in particular? You know, I've had people throw some of the lesser parts of Sinatra at me in terms of if I'm, Sinatra, I love Sinatra, I love this. That. Yeah, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And like you said, I think the best way to put that is he was a flawed human being.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't perfect. And by celebrating the man and his music, I don't think you're celebrating every aspect of his character.
Yeah.
I don't think there's things that I look at, and like you, again, someone might be like, well, what about this? We're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But, you know, nothing really comes to mind where I'm like, he did this thing, therefore he's no longer what I once considered him to be.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be pretty bad for me to kind of take it to that level, whatever the thing was. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, as far as musicians go, if you're waiting for the musician that hasn't had a little bit of a shadier side or skeletons in the closet and all that, I'm not sure who you're going to be listening to, you know? So it's just,
yeah.
But no, in answer to your question,
you and I share that fandom quite a bit, you know, in knowing that there are parts of his past that you're like, yeah, that wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious as to if there was anything there that you're like, kind of knocked him down a peg or two.
And if not for me. Yeah, not for me. I really, yeah.
So now the question is there anyone, celebrity, athlete, that you held in high regard that you don't anymore? Or struggle?
You're asking for me, Pat Canigallo? Not really. I mean, yeah, not really.
No.
Like there's guys that'll kind of play dirty and there's guys that'll do all that, but it's not like I put them up on a pedestal and they were my idol kind of thing. And I don't know that we were necessarily, I don't want to say that we were jaded kids growing up, but it was kind of hey, puts his pants on one leg at a time, right? You know, it's just like us. You're just super talented guy, but I mean, you know, I don't mean to be blasé about the question, John. I apologize. I'm talking too much and I don't even have the answer. Why don't you guys get into it? Why don't you guys answer this?
It's more fun to listen to you ramble.
Oh, yeah.
This is a tough one because I don't know if I could think of one that rocked me more than others. But there's the talent. There's some talent in the sports world. There's talent in acting, and then there's those whose wholesome image was just destroyed. And I guess I don't know that it affected me personally, because I think, Pat, you say it pretty well. Not to say that we were jaded, but at some point you started to realize that people just aren't perfect. And while it might be disappointing, I don't know that it actually affected anything. But I will say, I think the one that surprised me most of all, and probably should not have, was Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
I think that was the one that was like, whoa.
Yeah, he was on my list for sure.
Like,
yeah.
Dang. Not expected. Like some of the others, you were like, okay, I can see all that now. But that one, whew.
So
I'm just going to ask, was the original question for any celebrities, or was it just sporting figures? I'm not saying we can't discuss it, but it's funny. I didn't even think about non-sporting people.
Any athlete, celebrity, etc.
Any athletes? Okay, well, yeah, the Bill Cosby thing is definitely.
If there's a member of the European monarchy that let you down at some point, you could include them too.
Doubt that, but hey, Dennis is in London. Who knows what's happening tonight?
That one Swedish king, really put me off monarchies ever since that thing.
Yeah.
So, Bo, with that in mind, you have a difficult time watching like old reruns of the Cosby Show?
I haven't had that happen to me. And I don't know. I think it would be... I tend to be able to disconnect the artist from the art. I haven't had the opportunity or the decision point with Bill Cosby, but there are others. Some of Michael Jackson's songs are good. But there's the classic example where a lot of us were asked whether we could disconnect the artist from the art in some way, and some people could and some couldn't.
I asked because I recently had a couple of clips from the Cosby Show pop up on the website I was looking at.
What did you think?
Like, God, this was such great comedy,
right?
And what I was really thinking about too was like, is it fair to cancel him and his work? Is that fair to the rest of the cast?
Right. What about Felicia Rashad? Amazing.
I mean, so many of those cast members were so brilliant with their comedy.
Yeah.
That
one guy ruins the whole thing.
Do I cringe when I see Bill Cosby come on screen? Maybe.
Do some of his jokes land a little differently now? Yeah, probably.
Maybe. But I'd like to say that I can get back into watching the show and celebrate the cast of the show, and not just turn it on because, oh, Bill Cosby. Like, I've seen the guy perform live.
Oh yeah,
it was such an incredible show when I saw him. So he was on my list of people I was thinking about for this question. So I'm glad you brought him up, because he was definitely one that I was like, oh yeah, Bill Cosby. I was a big fan of his, and yeah, it landed a little sideways for a while, but working to celebrate, like you said, or separate the artist from the art. I think that's a good way to put that.
Because there was so much about his character in that show, that the character was good, and there was a lot to learn from that character as a dad.
Right.
And I do feel like that does take away from the work that the writers did, the showrunners did, like you're saying, the rest of the cast, to build that character. Part of my thought is then take away his ability to earn any money off of it, but continue to use. There were times we would use, I remember back in the day when we were doing, I don't remember what everything was called before we called it advisory, but I remember we would have times where we'd pull up a clip from the Cosby Show. Dennis would do that on the morning announcements sometimes. He'd pull up a clip from the Cosby Show with Cliff talking to Theo about something, and he'd use it as kind of a quick little moral lesson that he'd put in on the morning announcements sometimes. And I remember using clips from The Cosby Show in my own class when we'd be relating to something that we'd read or whatever. So
but there's a great example of something, even if you can separate the artist from the art, you might not do that now.
Right.
Because you can't be sure that everyone else in the room can do that.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or that they
I
won't
wouldn't
go
use
home
that
and
if I
say,
was
guess
still
what I saw today.
right. If I was still teaching, I definitely would not be using Cosby Show clips in my lessons. But
and that's a shame in some way, because like you said, the writers created this character that, and they say a good actor can play completely against their own personality, and here we are. It's it's a struggle.
But it's okay. So I'm glad you mentioned Bill Cosby, because he was on my list. Mine, I think, because I was such a huge fan as a kid. Mine was Michael Jackson. Like when all that stuff came out, I was just shocked by that stuff. I mean, I had other people that kind of were on my list of like, well, I shouldn't have been shocked that person turned out not to be a great person, but that one, I think, and then the other one, there's one that I learned some stuff about just recently, and I don't even want to mention it because as I've been trying to figure out if this is true or not, there's not enough evidence from reputable sources for me to be able to say, oh yeah, that I can see how that's been reported from actual reputable places. Most of what I've been able to find, it's related to Mark Hamill. I don't know if you guys are aware of some of the stuff that's gone around in the last few years or so, but I can only find it on like tabloid sites and some of the websites that would definitely have a vested interest in making him look bad and stuff like that.
Well, he is a, I'm not going to say, he is a not outspoken critic of certain thoughts these days. And I feel like that could be where some of that is coming from.
Yeah. So there was some stuff on him that I'm like, oh man, I really hope that's not true. I don't have enough evidence to prove to myself whether or not that's true. So I'm just going to have to let that one sit. The one that kind of disappointed me pretty recently was finding out more about some of the struggles between Billy Joel and his band members over agreements as to who came up with this idea for this song. And yeah, I was in his band for 20 years and he didn't pay me for half this stuff, and just a lot of legal stuff and disagreements, and a lot of it, even the people that got along with him really well were like, oh yeah, no, Billy did that. That's totally not that's not outside the realm of possibility. He totally did that. So some of that, I still love his music. I still love to watch interviews with him because I love to hear him talk about his process and you know his love of music and how he brings in his influences. But some of that has soured it just a bit, so that I just got to remind myself, sure, yeah, these people were our heroes, but at the same time, they're not heroes. They're just people. So you can still enjoy their music. You can still, and I don't want to say the legal payment stuff does, in my mind at least, seem less egregious than the stuff that Bill Cosby is guilty of. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that either. Like that's just
right.
You're kind of a jerk of a person if you're doing those kind of things to people that have been in your band and been part of this for years and years and years, and you're mistreating them.
So, Jake, you're out of prison. You're rehabilitated. You're free. You got our money, mother. I guess I was also gonna say is that I guess the musician thing. Maybe I'm a little bit off because one of my first favorite musicians was Miles Davis.
Oh yeah.
And I read his autobiography early on. I think I was way too young to read his autobiography, and it was just kind of like, okay, well, in your favorite musician, they refer to as the Prince of Darkness. Well, okay, it kind of. No, but in all seriousness, it's.
Pat, if it helps you feel any better, if peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
That's right. But I mean, and that was the thing, is that Miles is just this like incredibly talented musician, right? There's this funny video you can find it on YouTube, and it's like, I guess it was years. I think it was back in the 70s. And there was this young kid that was playing, and they're like, "So Miles, this kid's gonna play for you," and he was like waiting for some commentary or whatever. And this kid just plays the heck out of the trumpet, and he's playing this whole thing, and he's, you know, and he's all excited to have Miles as his hero. And what does he think? And so and the MC guy's like, "So Miles, what do you think of this?" he's sitting there and it's just like quiet. Play it in E flat. Why you play it in D? Then it just, the kid was like, oh, okay. And MC tries again. He's like, so you have any words of encouragement? Yeah, don't play it in the wrong key. Practice. You got to sound better or something. I mean, it was just like, it's just kind of those, that was more of a funny moment than anything. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple other names that popped up for me when I was thinking about this. Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, that was on my list.
Yeah. That one was
rough.
That one was rough. And again, not that I revered Kevin Spacey.
No, but such a talent.
Yeah. Yeah. So watching his films is just a little bit like, ooh. Same thing with Mel Gibson.
Yeah, that's another one that was on my list.
You
Both
watch,
of them, you're like,
you watch some of their movies, you're like, oh, this is so good. But, there's a whole dude showed his cards to the world. Not cool. When Will Smith smacked Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Like that was like, what? I had no idea he was the type of person that would do that. And just one moment like that just kind of soils the whole body of work.
When you hear what Sean Connery has no problem doing to a woman that talks back to him. Like
Charo twice.
Like, dude, that's not cool. Not cool there, buddy.
Not.
And then in a later interview doubles down on it. He's like, oh yeah, there's appropriate times to hit a woman with a closed fist. Man, come on. No.
No,
never.
No, the appropriate time is never a clock.
Yeah. One no only, Sean.
The last name that I have, and it's a person that I revered a lot in terms of podcasting.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Pee Wee Herman. Go ahead.
No.
Okay.
No, Chris Hardwick.
Oh, yeah.
When all the allegations came out against him and how he treated one of his exes, I really looked up to the guy as a podcaster and getting to know him through the stories that he told about himself and his own struggles. And I was like, I really looked up to the guy. And then John, when you were like, oh, I want to do this podcast, I'm like, podcast like Hardwick. Oh, this is gonna be great. I get to kind of do the thing that this guy's been doing and he's so good at it. I even went so far as I had a sign hanging up my classroom on the door said, enjoy your burrito, which was the way that he ended his podcast. I really looked up to the guy. So that when the allegations came out against him, like that one really kind of shook me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one really got to me.
Yeah. All right.
I mean,
maybe
to a smaller extent, speaking of podcasting, Roderick.
Yeah.
John Roderick. Same.
Friendly Fire.
Yeah, same kind of deal.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask this question. Do you think that thing with Roderick kind of got a little blown out of proportion? Or do you think that, hey, you know what, maybe we only heard about the tip of the iceberg there?
It seemed, and again, outside looking in, but it seemed to get resolved so quickly.
Yeah.
That my built-in cynicism says we only heard a little.
Yeah.
It's, you just have that built-in, gosh, there's got to be more because it went away so fast sort of feeling.
Right.
Yeah. That was
and
a
by
weird
went
deal.
away so fast, he went away so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, question two, maybe on a slightly happier note.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Just want to mention, I just doing a little bit of research on Hardwick, and it says that a comprehensive investigation conducted alongside law firm Loeb and Loeb had failed to confirm his accuser's allegations. So I guess that helps.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it's out there,
right.
I don't know. And his accuser refused to cooperate in the investigation because she said she does not believe in an eye for an eye. So she wrote her accusation so she can move on with her life. So after the allegations were unsubstantiated, Hardwick got some of his jobs back, being the host of The Wall on NBC, being involved with Comic-Cons and hosting panels at Comic-Cons, being on Talking Dead, getting that started back up again, his name being re-added to the Nerdist website.
Yeah. Was the ID10T podcast, was that separate from Nerdist?
That was a follow-up. So it's the same podcast.
Yeah.
Just it ended up being he wanted to take it and separate it from Nerdist.
Okay. All right.
So it sounded like he was ready to move on from the Nerdist brand.
Yeah.
So he generated the ID10T podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
But all of the back episodes from Nerdist, I believe, are now listed under the ID10T.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe a slightly happier question. Who's your favorite writer or journalist character in a movie? And I nearly messed this one up because my first answer was from a TV show. And I was like, dang it. I should have said movie or TV.
No, is anyone going to take Knox from Batman 89 just for giggles?
No, good point. Good point. Bringing it all back to this one's movie.
This is a tough one, man.
Yeah, this one's really hard.
I think I'm going to go with one that I had two that I really loved, but I'll pick one. And if no one brings up the other one, I'll say it later. Mostly because this one, I want to make sure, because I don't think we've watched it yet. And it's from 76. So we could watch it in 26 as a...
You're taking my answer, I think.
Oh, okay. Well,
go for
which one? Which one did you pick?
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay. But okay, I chose Woodward from All the President's Men.
Okay.
Robert Redford, and it's a 1976, so we could watch it in 26 as a special thing if we haven't already done it. And I don't think we have. So.
I'll take if you're taking Woodward, I'll take Bernstein.
Deal.
Yeah, that was actually one of the movies that made me want to become, even though I ended up becoming a teacher, I wanted to become a journalist, and that was the reason senior year, I think junior year, I took the journalism class we had in school. And we watched that movie, and that was like, at that point, I was like, I'm going to work on the school newspaper next year. I'm going to go to college for journalism. I'm going to be that, coupled with the fact that Clark Kent was a journalist, didn't hurt either. But that movie was the one.
I was expecting that to be your answer, John.
That is part of my answer. But that, All the President's Men did not hurt. So that is actually my answer, too. My original answer that I messed up, and I was like, God bless it, that's a TV character, was Will McAvoy from The Newsroom.
That definitely popped into my head.
Yeah. But then I was like, if I add TV now and I do it at the last minute and I didn't give anybody a heads up, you're all going to heckle me for that. So let's stick with movies. And
well, because if you had TV, someone's going to say Murphy Brown, and then we're just going to have a half-hour long discussion on that, which we can't really afford. So
that's true.
I'm looking at the IMDb pictures of All the President's Men right now. That's good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. We'll do. I'll go ahead and say it now. We'll cover that one in 2026.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Pat, do you have an answer for this question? Because I'm still.
I really like, and I don't know the movie or the characters enough to really go specific, but the movie Spotlight, I thought was really well done, and I thought those characters, just how they capture that whole thing, and I mean, it was like a who's who of all the actors that they had playing it, that newsroom. I really enjoyed that movie.
So to dovetail off of that, Michael Keaton. You ever seen The Paper?
Mm-hmm.
He's really great as a journalist in that, too. That was on my short list.
Okay.
I haven't seen The Paper in years, but it's good. Because we didn't watch it in 24, did we?
We are watching it in November.
Oh, look at me.
There you go.
Score.
There you go.
Love that movie.
Ahead of the curve.
Love
I'm
that
looking forward
movie.
to seeing this movie now.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good. And when I watched Spotlight, I was like, ooh, he's a reporter again. This will be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was.
He was great in Spotlight.
I love
The
that
other
movie. I
one-
love the paper.
The other one I was going to say was the portrayal of Joe Galloway in We Were Soldiers. I think 'cause I like that movie a lot. I think the book's amazing, and he was actually the co-writer of the book with. Why am I drawing a complete blank on the general's name? And I'm really embarrassed about that. Anyways,
Don't worry, Pat.
it
You're
was
the only one in the room who would have known the general's name anyway.
no, but I think they just renamed a fort for him. Now that's going to bother the heck out of me. I'm really sorry about that.
To the internet.
Pat, do you want me to tell you something that'll help you feel better?
Help me feel better, John.
When we watched the paper in November, Michael Keaton is the main actor in that one, and co-stars is Marissa Tomei.
Oh, making my little heart go pitter pat.
There you go. You feel better
It's
now?
really, really nice. I do. I feel really nice now. I'm back in my happy place. Anyways, I would say that Spotlight, but then the portrayal of Joe Galloway in Hal Moore. Okay, and I didn't need to get to the Google. Google was still loading, and I remember that. So yeah, General Hal Moore and Joseph Galloway was the correspondent that was embedded with them in Vietnam, and then they co-wrote the book. And I like I said, the movie is a pretty powerful movie, and as is the portrayal of that character. So.
I'm struggling a lot.
Well, I don't know if this will lead you down a path, but my runner-up was not truly a straight-up reporter, so that's why I didn't end up picking this one. But if you include photojournalism, then I would add Rear Window.
No, see, that doesn't help anything.
Oh,
Sorry.
no.
Well,
Okay,
and
so
it,
you
and it
need
probably
help
it
paring
probably doesn't
down.
help. Well, it probably doesn't help for me to say that writer could also mean like novelist.
I know that's okay.
Start listing, Jeff. Let's start listing.
Now I see the dilemma.
Or playwright.
Open the floodgates. Open the floodgates and let them flow.
Barton Fink.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's on that list. Johnny Depp's portrayal of J.M. Barrie in Finding Neverland.
Yeah.
That's a movie I put on. When that movie ends, I just want to sit and write.
Yeah.
The character of Gil from Midnight in Paris.
That was a really yes. That's a really good one. That might be getting a rewatch tonight, Jeff, because of you.
Midnight in Paris?
Yeah.
All right. I will let you do it.
He'll take the blame for that.
Well, gosh, if you're talking about writers.
Also, the character's name is William Miller from a little movie called Almost Famous.
There you go.
And he passes himself off as a Rolling Stone writer.
Mm-hmm.
That's another movie I just really, really dig. But yeah, there's just so many great writer characters. There's great journalist characters that I don't think it's fair to have to choose them on. So I'm not gonna.
Jeff just rejected your question.
I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I need to maybe just do one of those for everybody.
Yeah.
That may be.
Include everybody's name.
Do questions like this. It's going to happen more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my movie rack over here. I'm just like, oh God, there's so many movies that.
I hear you have a nice one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah. Speaking of a big one, question 3: who's the best king?
I'm going to go with Kong.
Okay.
Oh, you got anything, or are you going to the Google?
Well, that's so hard. I thought, King Ralph, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the kings of comedy. I mean, I went back and forth on this one, and I just couldn't land on anything.
Jonathan Groff's portrayal of King George III in Hamilton.
There you go.
There you go.
You'll be back. Wait and see.
So good.
I'm so blue.
We had a former student do a take on that for COVID. Did you guys ever see that?
Oh gosh, yeah. The Joswiak one?
Joswiak.
Oh
yeah.
my God. That was priceless.
It was amazing. Jeff and John, judging by your... Okay, we'll have to forward that.
See if we can find that.
Yeah,
that was good.
It's so good. Not to mention his vocal stylings, which I mean, he's amazing. Come on, right? But
so good though.
We'll be back. Yeah, it's just
the trick's gonna be remembering what school he was working at back then.
Yeah.
Huh. So for me, I went back and forth, but I was gonna go with the easy one, Elvis, because I couldn't narrow any of the rest of them down.
Okay. There you go.
There you go.
I mean, because I could spend all day going back and forth, but he's the king.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going with Kenny Roberts. Is everybody out there Googling Kenny Roberts right now? I all got quiet.
I'm assuming
okay.
he's with a name like Kenny Roberts. I don't think he has anything to do with jazz. It's probably a racer of some kind.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. It just got super quiet, and I see everybody's fingers go to the keyboards, and I'm like, okay, well, John probably has his answer, and the rest of everyone typed. So, yeah, Kenny Roberts raced motorcycles.
Okay.
Well, all different motorcycles.
I'm shocked.
And all through the 70s and, into the 80s, and he was a team owner, and he's larger than life personality. And you were talking about a lot of the way the game of baseball is played is because of this, and the way this happens is because of this. A lot of the way people ride motorcycles around a Grand Prix circuit now are because of the way he did it. So and he's the king Kenny Roberts. So
you almost just said King Candy, which also I feel would be a good choice of king.
King Candy, there it is.
Burger King.
Yeah, I was gonna say Burger King is always an option.
King Jaffe Joffer.
That is one of mine. I actually had a toss up. I had a toss up between King Jaffe Joffer of Zamunda and King of the Hill, Hank Hill.
That boy ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
That boy ain't right.
Mm-hmm. There's some.
What about Mufasa or Simba?
Mm-hmm.
Mufasa.
Which, according to the trailers, I don't know if this is spoiler or not. I guess there's going to be a live action Lion King prequel.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm not judging. I'm merely observing.
Disney doesn't know what they're doing with their money.
No, they have too much of it and they just throw it around. I did just drop something in the chat. I think, unless he did a couple versions, Pat, I think that's the one.
Okay, that is, everybody please watch that because it's amazing.
I'm gonna throw out one of my last runners up that was on my list was King Roland of Druidia.
Oh yeah. She doesn't look Druish.
Funny. She doesn't look Druish.
And if you could, can you save the car? I got a great deal on it. My brother-in-law owns a dealership in the valley. We'll rescue the Princess King. We're not doing this for money.
We're not.
No one said King Aragorn.
No, I didn't say that one. He'd be on the list, but
be on the list.
Yeah, you know what? I'm struggling with this one just like I was with the last question.
Yeah.
How many questions are you going to reject today?
Well,
all of them.
Okay.
All of them. No, I didn't reject the first question.
No,
I had a lot of answers for the first question.
Yeah.
I didn't reject it.
You didn't want to go with Don King or Stephen King or
Don King's a good one.
BB King.
E.B. King.
Ben Kingsley.
Ooh.
I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
Dead air, dead air, dead air.
Gonna have to
All right.
edit
Have we exhausted our kings?
Speaking of Billy Joel, dead air is what he repeated into the microphone when he was performing at the Grammys years back as a way to protest the fact that they cut off Frank Sinatra's speech after getting the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh.
Oh.
During his speech, they went to commercial.
Well, and then the networks got back at him by leaving his live show early for the news, I think.
So later in the night, when Billy Joel was performing, like he had arranged it with his band, we're going to get this far and then we're just going to stop. And he just leaned to the microphone and went, dead air, dead air, dead air, dead air. In the middle of the night. They just went on with the song. I was like, what a great way to be like, you cannot cut off Frank Sinatra in the middle of a speech.
Right.
You don't do that.
And then to Bo's point, they do it to Billy Joel in 2024.
Right.
Yep. But alas.
Like, you can't stop there. We were just talking with Davey, who's, I think, still in the Navy, but I'm not sure.
But I don't know.
I don't know for sure. He might have moved on.
I will never know.
Is he still there? Has he been honorably discharged? I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably going to be there for life.
Probably. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted everything we can possibly say about Cobb, at least for right now.
Is that why we were here?
Apparently it was.
That's what we started with.
Oh, yeah. That's where we meandered away from.
Yeah.
Well, this is the 30-something movie podcast, and you can find us at 30podcast.com. Find all of our past episodes there. We've got some fun stuff coming up for the rest of this month. This is our fun and games month. If you're over on Patreon with us, you can bask in the glory that is our episode on Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, which was a lot
John
of fun.
finally got to say that and mean it.
I did. And say it multiple times, too.
Indeed.
And still going to continue to use it.
Of course.
Not to be mistaken for Christopher Robin 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. Yes.
Or Highlander 2, The Crappening.
Yeah. If we had a breakdancing Winnie the Pooh movie, I would be all over that. I feel like now that we have Winnie the Pooh horror movies, I think we can do a breakdancing Winnie the Pooh movie.
Breaking the Pooh Electric Boogaloo? I don't know.
Well, Electric Boogaloo. Electric
Boogaloo. I'm still waiting for the Breakin' and Cool as Ice mashup crossover.
Huh?
There's a whole nother level there that I'm just not sure I want to comment on at this point.
That's Cobb.
Anyway, the other Patreon episode this month is also Shatter Dead, a shot-on-video zombie movie from 1994, which I did break down and purchase, so I didn't pay a lot for it, but I did go ahead and purchase it, and maybe when I'm done, I'll either keep it or resell it. But then so far this month, we've had Angels in the Outfield quiz show. Today was Cobb. Next week is Hoop Dreams, and then we finish off the month with Maverick. Probably around this time, I have released our list of next year possible movies to our Patreon folks. So if you are one of our Patreon co-executive producers, you by now most likely have that list, and you can get to voting on there for what you want to see for next year. And then later on, towards the end of this year, we'll release that out to the general public, and we'll cry havoc and let slip the dogs of Google Forms and find out what everybody else wants to see too. So
next year looks fun, kids.
There's a lot of fun stuff for next year. So very, very good stuff. So gentlemen, as always, thank you for being here. And if you don't respond to the word gentlemen, thank you for being here as well. I just want to make sure I cover everybody.
Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate
that. You're welcome. You know what? I do want to say, before we started recording, I did call you sir, so I was polite to you. And
that's
first time for everything.
I wrote it down.
There was.
Did you write it down? Okay. I realized I wasn't recording when I said it, so you had no proof.
None.
John Reed.
I don't need proof.
John Reed.
I know the truth.
John Reed, the meanest guy who ever did a podcast. Somebody's make a movie. Be the shortest movie.
We're gonna find a guy named Stump to help write it.
That'd be fun.
We could call it Breaking the Ice or Breaking with Ice.
You are being played off right now.
Dead air. Dead air. Dead air.
Dead air. Oh my gosh.
Especially if you watch Cool as Ice.
Some will